Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Quranic Connection TV, and in today's daily Quran challenge we're talking about the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that alcohol is not permissible, but Allah says there's some good in it, and here is why. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَسْأَلُونَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعٌ لِلنَّاسِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like they ask about alcohol and gambling, or they ask about intoxicants and gambling. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, say to them, tell them, like indeed in it there is a huge sin, but there's also some benefit. So the question is, like we know it's a sin, you know it's a sin, like we all know like alcohol and gambling in Islam is not permissible, and it's something that is abhorrent. So like why does Allah then tell us that yes, there is some good in it for us? Like where's the good? Now we're going to get to that. I'm going to get to that, but I want you to understand what exactly does khamr mean. So the word khamr, in its linguistic meaning, it means satr. Satr is from the verb satara. Satara, it means to cover. So, you probably heard a derivative of this word before, khimar. Khimar is the veil that the Muslim woman who covers her face wears. And khimar is a direct derivative from this word khamr. So why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the word khamr to describe intoxicants or alcohol? And I say intoxicants or alcohol because intoxicants is the one. Because essentially what Allah is telling us is that the very thing that made you the superior being on the face of this planet, meaning that you, human, you're better than every other creation in the face of the earth. Like you're better than all the animals, you're better than the jinn, like you're better than any creation. Like why are you better than any creation? Because you have an intellect. You have an intellect, and it's as though like the khamr, it covers over your intellect. So, and we know that because a person who's intoxicated, whether it be with alcohol or whether it be with drugs, like any type of intoxicant, what it does is that a person loses their inhibitions. It's like their intellect is being covered over. And when your intellect is covered over, you behave in ways that are, sometimes inconceivable. Like what you yourself wouldn't believe yourself to be doing, like you find yourself doing those things. And this is the main reason for why alcohol is prohibited. Not because it's something which tastes bad or something which has a bad effect generally, but it has a greater effect than that. It has the greatest effect on you because the very thing that raises you to the level of superiority out of all of creation is covered over. And that intellect is the very thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you with in order to give you choice. And that choice is what leads you to good or bad. You choose to go to paradise or you choose to go to hell. Allah's not going to throw you into paradise or throw you into hell. Like you're going to choose those destinations. Whichever one you choose, you're going to choose it. And as for alcohol, alcohol is something that covers up your intellect. And when it covers up your intellect, you will do things that will lead you to the hellfire, or the things that will lead you to taking someone's right, or like hurting someone else. Like we know the problems that alcohol causes. It's not just alcohol and drugs. Like anything that intoxicates your mind, that takes away your ability to think, is that which leads you astray. And look, we know in Islam one of the very fundamental usuli rulings is that a person who has no intellect, they're not accountable. Meaning, like someone who is insane, like doesn't matter what they do, Allah will never judge them. Allah won't judge them. Allah won't punish them, even if they commit a heinous crime. Why? Because they don't have sound intellect. They don't know what they're doing. A child is not accountable. Why is a child not accountable? Because a child does not understand what is going on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an age of accountability. When we are able to think and use our own minds to decipher between right and wrong, then Allah gives us the ability to make those choices. But before then, we're not accountable. Our parents are responsible for us. And when you become an adult, if you lose your mind for whatever reason, like you don't have sound intellect and you can't make a decision, you can't decipher between right and wrong, then you're not accountable. Allah will never hold you accountable and will not punish you even if you do something wrong. So the thing is, like, accountability is based on intellect. Like being able to make the right decisions is based on intellect. So then anything which covers that intellect up and stops it from, its actual job, which is to lead you through life, anything that stops that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made that impermissible. And so, like, alcohol is impermissible. Like, we know it's impermissible, but this is why, because it takes you from the highest level that you have, a level of intellect, and it brings you to a level where you're like a child. You can't make your own decisions. You can't live your own life. Everything has to be done for you. And we see that happening to adults. Adults who are abusing alcohol or drugs, what happens to them? They lose their faculty of mind. When they're intoxicated, they commit crimes. They rape and pillage and like murder, robbery, like all of the crimes that you can think of. Like even if they unintentionally do it, driving whilst being intoxicated, what does it do? You run people over. You end up killing people. Like, are you accountable? Like, will the court of law hold you to account for drink and driving? Of course they will. Because you made a choice to drink. You made a choice to cover your intellect. And when you covered your intellect, you didn't know what you were doing. And then the consequence of that is that you took someone else's right. You took someone else's life or their wealth or their reputation, things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent Islam to protect. And so anything that negates or invalidates these rights that people have, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it impermissible. And so here, like, we know why it's impermissible. So like, let's get to the question. Why does Allah then say that there is some good in it? Well, there's two reasons for that. Like the main reason is that those who sell it, they will benefit from it. They will benefit in the short term, meaning that there is some ribh, there is some profit. Like the one who sells alcohol, the one who sells drugs, like they make huge amounts of wealth, like more than the average person. Like why? Because these substances, they're addictive. Like even if you don't want it, after a while, once you're addicted to it, you crave for it, your body craves for it, so you keep chasing after it. So these people who are selling it, like they benefit from it, they profit from it. But the profit that they gain is short term. It's very, very short term, because look, like our deeds, like you and I, our deeds will affect us. Even if I'm not drinking the alcohol, or I'm not taking the drugs, but I'm selling it, and I'm helping others to destroy their own lives. Like sure, they're doing the action, but I'm the one that's supplying it to them, and they're destroying their own lives. Even if that's the case, then what do you think is going to happen? Like, you're harming your brother, you're harming the people in your community, you're harming the society, and ultimately, like, you're creating you're sowing the seeds of destruction in society. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even though there is some benefit, meaning that I will benefit because I'm the one that's selling it, as for the society as a whole, everyone loses. And ultimately, in the end, I'm the one that will lose the most, because I'm the one that sowed the seeds of corruption. And as we said in the previous session, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا تُوَلَّى سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ. If they then take power, if they have the ability and the power, and they go out into the earth, they work hard to spread corruption. Like, they may not see that they're spreading corruption, but they work hard to spread corruption. So me, if I'm selling it, like, I'm spreading corruption, and ultimately, in the end, like, I'm the one that's going to lose. It won't be just the people that are being corrupted or hurt by what I'm selling to them, but I will lose, because that haram earnings that I'm taking into my home, I'm then feeding myself, I'm feeding my family, I'm feeding my children, I'm raising and building my dunya upon this haram wealth. And this is like building a mansion on quicksand. Like, you're not going to sink straight away, but slowly you're going to sink. And you're going to see the effects of that on your children, on your family, on yourself, on your health. And in the end, we will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something, corruption on the earth is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a very serious tone with. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wallahu la yuhibbul fasad. Allah says that, and He does not like the corruption. Allah hates the corruption. Allah hates the corruption, and that we should spread this corruption and create this harmony on the face of the earth. And so in the end, like, I will lose, you will lose, we all lose. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yes, there may be some benefit in it, but the greatest loss, it comes first. Allah mentions, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Fihima ithmun kabir. Like, there is a huge sin in this. Allah says this before Allah says there's a benefit. Like, how can you and I benefit from this? Like, we benefit from this by making sure that our intellect is intact. We benefit from this by making sure that our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is intact. We do not spread corruption on the earth, even for profit. Sure, I may benefit in the short term, but in the long term, I will lose. And so this is a warning to us, but this is also a glad tidings to us. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us that the intellect that you have, use it. It will raise you above all else. Allah has created the earth in the service of you. So if you use your intellect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the highest station in this dunya before you get to the akhirah. So inshallah, I'll leave you with that. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.